Hi, everybody. This is John Thompson. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my final project for school. This is called Surviving on Your Own. It's 6 useful lessons that will help you to basically develop the skills you'll need to survive in the real world. And here are the project links to help you narrate through the page. We're going to start off with the introduction. I basically do an author statement, a goal. I offer an essential question for the course and offer questions prior to the course to basically assess what they know. There's a coronavirus outbreak notice that I put in. This is basically while the virus is going on to basically have the students limit their social interactions and social distancing. Teachers can also vary the activities and adapt the activities to this crisis, which will hopefully pass. I have an introduction and I have project links. I go next to the Brainy Bits. The Brainy Bits basically is a section that I've incorporated where I try to make it also an educational thing. The problem is how we spend money and how we see things and view things in our society. So much of what goes on internally affects our behavior externally. So I'm going to have the students basically read articles and write an essay on what they think. So that's pretty much going to be what is up with Brainy Bits. I have a tasks section. We talk about basically what they'll be doing in a general sense, activities. Each lesson, as you noticed, has a test at the end of it. And ultimately at lesson 6, which is the last lesson, there's also going to be a final exam encompassing all the material in the course. I have a process. This basically consists in order of all the assignments that the students are supposed to follow, and I have them listed here. I have all the assessments that they need. I have a glossary of terms for stuff that they don't understand, a rubric describing the checkbook activity that we're going to talk about, a partner list, who they're going to be working with for the checkbook activity, monthly bills they're going to have to get paid with their partner, a sample check that they can modify with the check number and, of course, the names on the check, and a checkbook spreadsheet, which is a template that's already set up that they can basically modify and add to as the lesson progresses. And, of course, I have the tests and exam over here. Lesson 1, I discuss why personal finance is important. I have here basically the reasons for it. I have a warm-up activity just to get an idea, again, as an assessment to figure out what they know before jumping in. I go into what a check and checkbook are, an anatomy of the check, a sample of a check that's filled out, why a checkbook is important, checkbook crimes, debit versus credit, and an activities section where the students are actually going to set up their own checkbook and start paying bills that are going to be assigned to them throughout the semester. I'm going to have them next create a budget. They're going to have to figure out what to do with the money that they get and where to spend it, and see if they can save some money. That'll be the next task that they have to do. And again, I have activities for them regarding budgeting and some other expenses that they're going to have to look into themselves and do research on. Which brings me to one of the expenses that they're going to have to do research on, which is insurance. I describe medical insurance, the types of health insurance coverage you can get at work, the fact that it's also a law in New Jersey with New Jersey shared responsibility requirement, what pre-existing conditions are, and how you can still get medical insurance now under Obamacare with pre-existing conditions, types of coverage. Nursing home insurance is another one that's important. Medicare, basically procedures and screenings you'll have to have as you age, and cost of a funeral for life insurance, and a little more in general about what it is. So you have term, whole, accidental death and dismemberment, and double indemnity, auto insurance with collision and liability, real estate insurance, homeowners, flood, renter's insurance, workers' compensation, unemployment, and then, of course, some other activities on the page here. Next, we're going to talk about credit cards. We talk about what the credit cards are, what exactly is on a credit card, loans. I talk about loans and mortgages, terms of a mortgage. Again, these terms are also listed in the glossary. Videos on mortgages, student loans, what's going on with the student loan crisis right now in this country, activities that they'll have to do. And then, of course, then we go to taxes. I talk about filling out a 1040 form, W-2, and what a W-4 are. We talk about a pay stub and other taxes that you pay for, and an activity on that as well. Then I talk about renting an apartment. Chances are, most likely, they're going to be renting an apartment as their first place to live. Types of arrangements to rent. I'm going to be talking about what they have to do, what to look out for when selecting an apartment, legal conditions, things that look dangerous, what your tenants' rights are, and some activities. Then we're going to talk about condominiums, townhouses, and homes, how they're similar, how they're different, what you can do, what you can't do. And then, of course, lastly, construction. We're going to talk about basically adding an addition onto a house, what it'll cost, types of remodels and renovations, basically things that have to be done. You have to know where the shutoffs are. Basically have a stakeout for when they dig for the foundation, especially so you don't disturb utilities, and other things that you have to do as a responsible homeowner to make sure and making sure that they're done, because they're ultimately going to affect you in the long run. And we talk about, again, the types of construction, types of walls that you're going to find in a house, and some activities on this. And of course, we arrive to the end of the lesson here, and I have an end of lesson test with project links. Then I go over here, we talk about cooking for yourself, which is basically a page of why it's important, what we're going to cover. They're going to do a food growing experiment, basically, seeing if they can gather up some seeds, put an onion in some water perhaps, and then put it in the soil and see if it grows, beet tops, carrot tops, etc., just to see if they can actually grow some food for themselves. We're going to talk about food waste, which is another issue that comes up. 40% of the food we grow in the United States is wasted. I want it also to be reflected that there's an attitude and culture that food is a luxury, not a necessity, when it's actually the latter. And summing up the problem, we have activities here on that. Nutrition, this is another big one. What are we going to basically eat? That's just as important, planning the meals. So that's going to be another thing we're going to be talking about, types of diets. And so you guys select an understanding from the types of diets and looking at ways to basically substitute ingredients for a healthy diet. Grocery shopping, getting the bargains, and what is a bargain, what isn't a bargain. We're going to talk about couponing and how bad it can be and the pitfalls of it. Government assistance programs like food stamps, store brands, and of course what is actually at the stores, using the internet to shop, which is now becoming commonplace during the coronavirus, as well as activities and links to the website. We're going to talk about food safety. Basically, how you handle food is important. Maintaining clean hands, wash your hands frequently, making sure your kitchen's clean, some activities showing that. Units of measure, basically making your ingredients last as long as possible, which is good because that can save money. And again, a basic measure chart and a simple activity with some project links. Reading a recipe, what's involved in that. And we're going to have cooking techniques too. What exactly are the ways to properly prepare the food? That's just as important as what you buy, because it can affect your health. And a lot of foodborne illness can happen from the way food is prepared. And of course, where you can get some of the equipment too. Some people like to go to garage sales. It's a good place to go. You may also get hand-me-downs, which, again, some of them could be very dated pots and pans, but they still work just as well as new. And Free is better than having to go out and actually buy these items at a store like Kohl's. And of course, your activities section again. We're going to be also talking about major appliances in here. And of course, the end of the activity section for a assessment. This is going to conclude the first third of my screencast for this.